Step 1. Detailed outline, Part 1. The invitation that changed everything. Approx. 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. 1, 0, 0 words. Narrator Claire Bennett, 29 years old. The story opens with Claire recalling the shocking text from her boyfriend Ethan Brooks, informing her that he intended to bring his ex-girlfriend Vanessa Carter to her father's retirement celebration, and telling Claire not to make it awkward. Claire initially responds calmly, hiding the emotional storm underneath. She introduces herself, her 2-year relationship with Ethan, and explains that until only a few weeks earlier, she believed they were building a future together. The retirement party means everything to Claire's family. Her father has spent over 30 years working as an engineer after serving in the military. Claire has personally helped organize the event, contributed to the guest list, chosen his retirement gift, and written part of the speech she is supposed to deliver. 10 days before the party, Ethan casually reveals over dinner that Vanessa will be attending because she has returned to town. Claire learns the audience's background. Ethan and Vanessa dated for 4 years. They supposedly ended their relationship because Vanessa relocated for work. Ethan repeatedly insisted they remained just friends. Claire has noticed increasing communication between them during recent months. Whenever Claire questioned it, Ethan accused her of being insecure. Unlike the original, this rewritten version adds, Claire noticing Ethan smiling unconsciously whenever Vanessa texts. Small memories she ignored at the time. Internal conflict where Claire wonders whether she has been confusing patience with love. More emotionally layered dialogue instead of quick arguments. Claire questions why Vanessa belongs at such an intimate family celebration. Ethan dismisses every concern. He insists Claire is overreacting. He tells her not to embarrass him. The argument ends with Ethan walking away convinced he has won. That night, Claire cannot sleep. She begins replaying 2 years of compromises. The chapter ends with Claire arranging a private coffee meeting with her father. The emotional hook. Perhaps this isn't about one party. Perhaps it is about every sacrifice she has ever made. Stop point of Part 1. Claire meets her father and begins questioning the entire relationship. Part 2. The woman who always compromised. Approx. 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0 words. Claire confides in her father. He quietly listens before pointing out something she has never wanted to admit. She has always been the one bending. He never criticizes Ethan directly. Instead, he asks one devastating question. Has he ever sacrificed for you the way you've sacrificed for him? Claire begins remembering. Moving in earlier than she wanted. Accepting Ethan's decisions without argument. Living with a dog, despite severe allergies. Spending every holiday with Ethan's family, constantly apologizing even when she wasn't wrong. Instead of feeling loved, she realizes she has gradually disappeared inside the relationship. Inspired by her father's honesty, Claire makes a decision. She texts Ethan, "Bring Vanessa, no problem." He congratulates her for finally being mature. Secretly, Claire phones her father again. Together, they create a quiet plan. Claire will not attend. No dramatic confrontation. No public fight. She wants Ethan to explain to everyone why he arrived at her father's retirement celebration with another woman, while his own girlfriend is absent. Unlike the original, suspense is expanded through Claire secretly booking an oceanfront resort, symbolic descriptions of packing only essentials, her leaving behind framed photos that suddenly feel unfamiliar, a handwritten note expressing she needs space to think. Ethan remains completely unaware. Meanwhile, he happily discusses what he'll wear, how Vanessa can ride with them, how wonderful it'll be for Vanessa to reconnect with Claire's family. Claire quietly agrees to everything. Inside, however, she has already emotionally walked away. The chapter ends with Claire driving toward the coast while turning off her phone. The final image. The ocean ahead. The relationship behind. Neither can be seen completely anymore. Stop, point of Part 2. Claire disappears while Ethan unknowingly walks into the trap he created. Part 3. When silence speaks louder than revenge. Approx. 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 100 words. Claire enjoys a peaceful weekend. For the first time in years. No arguments, no emotional exhaustion, no constant need to justify her feelings. When she finally turns on her phone, dozens of missed calls and messages appear. The emotional progression follows the original. Ethan's texts evolve from confused, angry, panicked, humiliated, desperate. Claire contacts her father first. He describes everything. The retirement party unfolded exactly as planned. Guests repeatedly asked where Claire was. Ethan attempted to claim she had a work emergency. Claire's mother immediately exposed the lie because she knew Claire had taken vacation days. Everyone slowly realized Ethan had arrived at Claire's father's retirement celebration with his former girlfriend. Vanessa becomes visibly uncomfortable. Even she seems to realize she should never have come. Claire's father still enjoys a wonderful retirement celebration because Claire's uncle reads her prepared speech. Claire's mother later admits Ethan's behavior was inappropriate. Claire's sister Olivia Bennett openly celebrates Claire finally standing up for herself. The rewritten version deepens suspense by adding Ethan constantly checking the entrance hoping Claire will appear, Vanessa quietly asking if they should leave, family members exchanging silent looks, Ethan realizing far too late that appearances cannot cover disrespect. Claire returns home. The confrontation begins. Ethan accuses Claire of humiliating him. Claire calmly reverses every accusation. She explains, "This was never about Vanessa. It was about respect." She asks why his ex mattered more than his girlfriend's feelings. He cannot answer convincingly. Claire realizes he still emotionally prioritizes Vanessa. She ends the relationship. She gives Ethan 2 weeks to move out because the apartment lease belongs to her. The chapter concludes with Ethan crying, while Claire quietly closes the bedroom door. Neither of them sleeps that night. Stop point of Part 3. The relationship officially ends. Part 4. The life she finally chose. Approx. 1 0 0 0 1 1 0 0 words. The breakup aftermath unfolds. Ethan moves out 12 days later. Attempts at emotional closure fail because Claire no longer negotiates her worth. Soon afterward, Olivia sends Claire screenshots. Ethan and Vanessa are officially dating. Claire isn't surprised. She realizes the emotional affair probably began long before the party. Her father invites her to dinner. Instead of discussing heartbreak, they celebrate his retirement. Before leaving, he tells Claire, walking away took more courage than staying. Weeks later, Claire unexpectedly encounters Vanessa in a coffee shop. Unlike the original, the gender swap changes this encounter naturally. Vanessa apologizes. She admits Ethan never told her. Claire objected to her attending. Claire realizes Vanessa was manipulated too, although Ethan remains responsible for betraying the relationship. The encounter is brief, but emotionally satisfying. 3 months later, Claire redecorates her apartment, focuses on work, exercises regularly, rebuilds family relationships, begins casually dating without rushing into love. She and her father now have weekly lunches. Her mother eventually asks whether skipping the retirement party was worth it. Claire answers, that weekend wasn't about avoiding a celebration. It was about refusing to celebrate a relationship where she was no longer respected. Additional emotional enhancements include Claire reflecting on the ocean as the place where she reclaimed herself, foreshadowing that boundaries often begin with silence instead of arguments. More hopeful ending emphasizing self-worth rather than revenge. The story concludes with edits mirroring the original. Claire and her father celebrate privately the following weekend. Ethan and Vanessa remain together. Claire has no interest in following their lives. Her mother quietly embarrassed Ethan at the party with one cold response. Claire reflects that leaving wasn't running away, it was finally choosing herself. End of outline. Step 2. Part 1. Claire Bennett, 29 years old. 3 weeks ago, my boyfriend sent me a text that changed the way I looked at love forever. I'm bringing Vanessa to your dad's retirement party. Don't make it awkward. I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing only 2 words. No problem. He thought he'd won. What he didn't know was that those 2 words marked the moment I stopped fighting for someone who had already stopped choosing me. Until then, I truly believed Ethan Brooks and I had a solid future together. We'd been together for 2 years, shared an apartment, talked about buying a house someday, and had settled into the comfortable routines people mistake for certainty. Looking back now, certainty and comfort aren't always the same thing. Sometimes comfort is just learning how much of yourself you're willing to give away before you notice there's almost nothing left. My father had spent 32 years as an engineer after serving in the military. Retirement wasn't just another milestone, it was the celebration of an entire lifetime of discipline, sacrifice, and quiet devotion to our family. My mother had been planning the retirement party for months. Nearly 80 guests had RSVP'd. Family, friends, former co-workers, neighbors, people who had watched my father build both bridges, and a family with the same unwavering integrity. I helped choose the venue. I helped organize the guest list. I picked out the family gift. I even wrote part of the speech I was supposed to give that evening. This wasn't simply another party. It was one of the most important days our family had celebrated in years. 10 days before the event, Ethan and I were eating dinner in our apartment. I was reviewing the final guest count my mom had texted earlier that afternoon, while Ethan scrolled through his own phone. His screen lit up. A smile crossed his face before he quickly locked it. It was subtle, small enough that I might have ignored it a few months earlier. Lately, though, I'd begun noticing those little expressions, the ones that appeared whenever one particular name showed up. He put his phone down as casually as someone mentioning tomorrow's weather. "Oh, by the way," he said, while cutting into his chicken, "I invited Vanessa to your dad's retirement party." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "I'm sorry." He looked up. "What?" "Vanessa, my ex." He nodded as though that answered everything. "She's back in town for a couple weeks. She doesn't know many people anymore. I figured it'd be nice to include her." There it was again. That word. Nice. As if inviting your former girlfriend to your current girlfriend's father's retirement celebration were simply good manners. For context, Ethan and Vanessa had dated for 4 years before I ever met him. According to Ethan, the breakup had been mature, mutual. She accepted a job across the country. Neither wanted a long-distance relationship, and they supposedly realized they were better as friends. I'd met Vanessa only once. She'd been polite, friendly, perfectly pleasant. Nothing about that meeting had alarmed me. But friendship was one thing. This was something else entirely. "Ethan," I said carefully, "that's kind of a huge decision." He frowned. "What do you mean? You invited your ex to my father's retirement party without even asking me. We're adults, Claire." His tone carried that familiar edge I'd been hearing more often lately. "Vanessa and I are friends. It's not a big deal." "It is to me." He leaned back in his chair. "Why?" "Because it's my family's event. My parents, my relatives, my father's retirement. Why would your ex belong there?" He sighed dramatically. "Because I want her there." Those 5 words landed harder than he probably intended. Not because he wanted a friend to attend, because my feelings hadn't entered his decision at all. Over the previous few months, Vanessa's name had slipped into our conversations more frequently. He'd laugh at messages while turning his phone slightly away. He'd mention conversations they'd had. If I ever asked whether they were talking a lot again, he'd smile impatiently. "You don't have anything to worry about." Or worse, "You're overthinking." Eventually, those became, "You're insecure." I hated that word. It transformed every reasonable concern into a personal flaw. "I'm not trying to start a fight," I said quietly. "I'm asking why you think bringing your ex to one of the biggest days in my family's life is appropriate." He pushed his plate away. "Because she's important to me." The room fell silent. Maybe he didn't hear what he'd actually said. I certainly did. I looked at him carefully. "So where do I fit into that?" "You always do this." "Do what?" "You make everything about insecurity." I blinked. "I asked one question, and I'm giving you one answer. I'm bringing Vanessa. I need you not to embarrass me." embarrass him. The irony almost made me laugh. Instead, I simply nodded. I see. Apparently, he mistook my calmness for surrender. He carried his plate into the kitchen and called over his shoulder. Glad we're finally being mature about this. Then, he disappeared into the bedroom. Conversation over. I remained at the table long after dinner had grown cold. The apartment felt strangely unfamiliar. Around me sat evidence of 2 years together. Photos from vacations. Our dog's toys scattered across the floor. The furniture we'd chosen together. Yet for the first time, none of it felt like home. Instead, I kept replaying moments I'd excused. Moving in before I felt ready, because he insisted we'd never know unless we tried. Taking allergy medication every day after adopting a dog he desperately wanted. Spending every Thanksgiving and Christmas with his parents, because mine understood. Apologizing after arguments I hadn't started simply because I couldn't stand the tension anymore. At the time I'd called those things compromise. Now, another word quietly surfaced. Accommodation. Always mine. Never his. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I texted my father, "Dad, do you have time for coffee today? Just us." His reply came almost immediately. "Of course, sweetheart." I had no idea that one conversation over coffee would become the first step toward changing my entire life. The coffee shop sat only a few blocks from my parents' house. It wasn't fancy. Just a quiet neighborhood place where my father had been ordering the same black coffee for nearly 20 years. When I walked in, he was already there, straight-backed as always. Even after leaving the military decades earlier, there was still something unmistakably different. Retirement hadn't softened that. If anything, it had simply replaced uniforms with flannel shirts. He smiled when he saw me. "Morning, sweetheart." I hugged him tighter than I normally would. He noticed. He always noticed. "You okay?" "I don't know." That was the most honest answer I had. We ordered coffee, found a corner table, and sat in silence for a minute while I figured out where to begin. Finally, I took a deep breath. "Ethan invited Vanessa to your retirement party." Dad didn't react immediately. "The ex?" "Yes. And he asked you first." I shook my head. "No. He told me after he'd already invited her." Dad folded his hands together. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about the dinner conversation. About Ethan insisting Vanessa was just a friend. About how he'd dismissed every concern I raised. About being called insecure for simply asking why his ex needed to attend one of the most important events in my family's life. Then, I admitted something I hadn't even said out loud before. "I don't think this is really about the party." Dad nodded slowly. "I didn't think it was." His calmness somehow made me more emotional. "I keep wondering if I'm overreacting." "You wouldn't have asked me to meet if you believe that." I looked down at my coffee. I feel like I'm always apologizing." He studied me quietly. Then, he asked a question so simple it almost hurt. "Claire, has Ethan ever sacrificed for you the way you've sacrificed for him?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. My father didn't rush to fill the silence. He simply waited. One memory surfaced. Then another. Then another. When Ethan wanted us to move in together after 6 months. "You weren't ready," Dad finished. I remember. I wasn't. But he kept saying it made financial sense. So I agreed. Another memory followed. "The dog." Dad smiled sadly. "The one you're allergic to?" "I take allergy medicine every morning. Have for almost 2 years. You love that dog." "I do. But I never wanted one while we were renting." Dad nodded. "What else?" I let out a long breath. "Every Christmas. My family always adjusted because Ethan wanted to spend holidays with his parents." "You noticed?" Dad almost laughed. "Claire." "We all noticed." That surprised me. "You did." He leaned forward. "We didn't say anything because we assumed those choices were mutual. They weren't." I swallowed. "Not really." He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "You know what I've watched these last 2 years?" "What?" "I've watched a wonderful daughter become smaller." That sentence landed harder than anything Ethan had ever said. "What do you mean?" "You apologized before speaking." You check Ethan's face before giving your opinion. You compromise before anyone asks. You stop laughing as loudly. You used to tell stories. Now you explain yourself. Tears blurred my vision. I didn't realize. I don't think you did. He reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. Love should make you feel safer, not smaller. I stared out the window. Cars drifted past. People walked their dogs. The world continued exactly as it always had. Yet somehow everything looked different. I don't want to miss your retirement party. Dad smiled warmly. I know. But I also don't want to spend the evening pretending I'm okay. I know that too. He sipped his coffee before asking quietly. So what do you want? Not what Ethan wanted. Not what my mother expected. Not what would avoid conflict. What did I want? For the first time in a very long time, I answered honestly. I don't want to sit across the room while Ethan introduces his ex-girlfriend to my relatives. I don't want everyone pretending that's normal. I don't want to smile through something that feels humiliating. Dad nodded once, then don't. I can't ask you to uninvite her. I'm not. I won't. But you also don't have to volunteer to be miserable. I looked at him. What if I just don't go? He held my gaze. If that's your decision, I'll support it. Something inside me loosened, not because he had solved my problem, because someone had finally given me permission to stop sacrificing myself just to keep someone else comfortable. On the drive home, I kept replaying his words. Love should make you feel safer. By the time I parked outside our apartment, my decision had already been made. That afternoon, I sent Ethan a message. Bring Vanessa. No problem. His reply came less than 30 seconds later. Say, was that so hard? I stared at the screen. For once I didn't bother defending myself. Instead I called my father. So he answered, I've decided. I'm not coming. He was quiet. You sure? Yes. But I want to ask you something. I'm listening. When Ethan arrives, when people start asking where I am, I don't want anyone lying for him. Dad chuckled softly. What are you thinking? Just ask him. Ask him where I am. Act surprised. Let him explain why he came to his girlfriend's father's retirement party with another woman while his girlfriend is missing. Silence. Then, my father laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly. Just the kind of laugh someone gives when they realize a lesson is about to teach itself. That's actually brilliant. I'm not trying to embarrass him. No, you aren't. You're simply refusing to protect him from his own decisions. Exactly. For so long, I'd believed maturity meant absorbing discomfort so nobody else had to. Maybe maturity was actually letting people experience the consequences of their own choices. The following week and a half became strangely peaceful. Ethan assumed everything had blown over. He talked nonstop about the party. I think I'm wearing the navy suit. What do you think? It looks sharp. I nodded. It does. The venue's about 40 minutes away. I told Vanessa she can ride with us. I smiled politely. Sounds convenient. He never once asked whether I was excited. Never once checked whether I still felt uncomfortable. Instead, he chatted enthusiastically about how nice it would be for Vanessa to reconnect with everyone she'd briefly met years ago. Each conversation confirmed what I already knew. He genuinely believed he'd done nothing wrong. 3 days before the party, while Ethan was at work, I opened my laptop. Instead of reviewing retirement speeches, I booked an oceanfront resort 2 hours away. The room overlooked the water. There was a private balcony, a spa, walking trails along the beach. I stared at the confirmation email for several seconds. It didn't feel like running away. It felt like breathing. Thursday afternoon arrived. Ethan texted that he'd be working late. Perfect. I packed one small suitcase. Jeans. Sweaters. A novel I'd been meaning to read for months. Running shoes. My favorite hoodie. Nothing more. As I walked through the apartment, I paused beside the framed photos lining the bookshelf. One showed us smiling on vacation, another from Christmas, another at a friend's wedding. From the outside, we looked incredibly happy. Maybe we had been once. Or maybe I had simply gotten very good at smiling. I picked up one picture, then set it back down. Not today. Before leaving, I grabbed a sheet of stationery from the kitchen drawer. I wrote carefully. Changed my mind. About the party. Needed some space to think. Have fun with Vanessa. We'll talk when I get back. No anger. No accusation. No dramatic goodbye. Just the truth. I placed the note beside Ethan's coffee mug, where I knew he would see it first thing in the morning. Then I picked up my suitcase. Locked the apartment door behind me. Turned my phone completely off. As the city slowly disappeared in my rearview mirror, the tension that had lived in my chest for months began to dissolve. The farther I drove, the lighter I felt. By the time the ocean appeared on the horizon beneath the afternoon sun, I realized something unexpected. I wasn't wondering whether Ethan would be angry. I wasn't wondering whether people would judge me. For the first time in years, I was wondering what life might feel like if I finally started choosing myself. The resort was exactly what I needed. I checked in Thursday evening just before sunset. My room was on the 4th floor, with a balcony facing the ocean. The air smelled like salt and rain, and the waves rolled toward the shore in slow, endless lines. For the first time in months, no one needed anything from me. No explanations, no compromise, no careful wording designed to avoid upsetting Ethan. I ordered dinner from the hotel restaurant, ate alone by the window, and went to bed before 10. Friday morning, I woke without an alarm. Sunlight spilled across the bed. The ocean stretched beyond the balcony, silver blue and calm beneath the early sky. I made coffee and sat outside wearing my robe, listening to the waves. It should have felt lonely. Instead, it felt peaceful. That frightened me more than I expected. I had spent 2 years believing Ethan was part of what made my life complete. Yet after less than 24 hours away from him, I felt more like myself than I had in months. I kept my phone turned off. I walked along the beach until my shoes filled with sand. I booked a massage. I ate lunch while reading the novel I had packed. That evening, I watched the sunset without taking a single photograph. There was no one to prove anything to. Saturday was the retirement party. I thought about my father all morning. Guilt crept in as I imagined him entering the venue, greeting former coworkers, thanking relatives, knowing his daughter would not be giving the speech she had written. But each time the guilt became heavy, I remembered his words. Love should make you feel safer, not smaller. My father understood why I had left. That mattered more than appearances. I finally turned my phone on Saturday evening. It vibrated so violently in my hand that I almost dropped it. 76 notifications. Missed calls. Voicemails. Text message. Most were from Ethan. The first message had arrived Thursday night. Where are you? Then, what does this note mean? Claire, call me. By Friday morning, confusion had become anger. You seriously left without talking to me. This is childish. You're making a huge deal out of nothing. Saturday afternoon, his tone shifted. Are you actually not coming? Your mom keeps asking when you'll arrive. Then panic. Claire, everyone is asking where you are. What am I supposed to tell them? And finally, this is humiliating. Your family is staring at me like I did something wrong. Please call me. I stared at that message. Like he did something wrong. Even then, standing in a room filled with my family, while his ex-girlfriend stood beside him, Ethan still saw himself as the victim. My mother's messages began with concern. Sweetheart, Ethan says you aren't coming. Are you all right? Later. He brought a young woman named Vanessa. He says she's an old friend. Is there something I should know? My younger sister, Olivia, was less delicate. Did you seriously go to the beach and leave Ethan to explain why he brought his ex? Then, another message. Because if you did, this is the boldest thing you've ever done. I called Dad first. He answered immediately. How's the ocean? He asked. His voice was calm, almost cheerful. Beautiful. How was the party? He laughed. Educational. I sat on the edge of the bed. What happened? Well, Ethan arrived with Vanessa around 6:30. He spent the first 10 minutes looking toward the entrance every time the doors opened. Did he know I wasn't coming? He knew by then. But I think he hoped you'd change your mind. Dad paused. Vanessa looked uncomfortable from the moment they walked in. What did Ethan tell people? At first he said you were running late. I closed my eyes. Of course he did. Then your mother asked him why you hadn't called her. After another 20 minutes, he changed the story and said you had a work emergency. But Mom knew I took Friday off. Exactly. I could hear amusement in Dad's voice. Your mother looked him directly in the eye and said, "Interesting." Then she walked away. I almost smiled. My mother's interesting could make a grown adult question every decision they had ever made. What happened after that? People started asking Vanessa how she knew us. My stomach tightened. And she told your aunt she used to date Ethan. I covered my mouth. She admitted it. She didn't seem to realize Ethan had been introducing her only as a friend. Once that information spread, everyone started putting the situation together. I pictured it. My father's coworkers, my aunts and uncles, family friends, who had known me since childhood, all looking at Ethan, then Vanessa, then the empty chair where I should have been. Was it awful? For Ethan. Dad chuckled. Yes. For me, no. I had a wonderful evening. Relief washed over me. Uncle Mark read your speech. Your mother cried. Your sister gave an unplanned toast that was mostly appropriate. Mostly. She called me the only man in the family who knows when to retire gracefully. I laughed for the first time all day. Dad continued. Ethan and Vanessa left around 8. She whispered something to him near the coat check. He looked angry. She looked embarrassed. Did they leave together? Yes. That detail settled uncomfortably in my chest. Not because I was jealous, because even after everything they still chose to leave together. Dad, I'm sorry I missed it. I know. I mean it. So do I. His voice softened. But we'll celebrate again. Just family. Were you disappointed? I missed you. He paused. But I wasn't disappointed in you. My throat tightened. Thank you. You finally stopped protecting someone from the consequences of disrespecting you. I called Mom next. She answered with my full name. Claire Elizabeth Bennett. What on earth were you thinking? Mom, did Ethan tell you Vanessa was his ex-girlfriend? Silence. No. He invited her without asking me. When I told him I was uncomfortable, he called me insecure and said he was bringing her anyway. Another pause. Longer this time. He told me she was a friend visiting from out of town. They dated for 4 years. Mom exhaled slowly. I wish you had told me. I didn't want to ruin Dad's party. You disappearing almost did. I know. But Dad understood. Yes, she admitted. Your father thinks you're some kind of strategic genius. Despite everything, I smiled. Are you angry with me? I'm angry that you felt you had to disappear to make your boyfriend listen. Her voice softened. And I'm angry that none of us realized how unhappy you were. After we hung up, Olivia called. She was laughing before I even said hello. You should have seen Ethan's face. Olivia. No, seriously. Every time the door opened, he stood straighter like you were about to walk in and rescue him. I wasn't trying to humiliate him. I know. That's why it worked. Her voice became more serious. Claire, are you ending it? I stared toward the dark ocean. I think I have to. Good. The speed of her answer hurt. You really dislike him that much. I dislike who you became around him. That echoed Dad's words. Everyone noticed except me, I whispered. You noticed. You just kept hoping it would get better. I returned home Monday morning. Ethan's car was in the parking lot. I carried my suitcase upstairs and stood outside the apartment door for several seconds before unlocking it. The place was a mess. Dishes filled the sink. Clothes were scattered across the living room. An empty bottle sat on the coffee table. Ethan was on the couch wearing sweatpants and the same dark expression he used whenever he believed someone else owed him an apology. The moment he saw me, he stood. Where the hell have you been? The resort. I told you in the note. You told me nothing. His voice rose. You vanished. You ignored every call. Do you have any idea how humiliating that party was for me? I set down my suitcase. How humiliating was it? His jaw tightened. Everyone was staring at me. Why? Because you weren't there. No, Ethan. They were staring because you brought your ex-girlfriend to my father's retirement party while your actual girlfriend was missing. Vanessa is my friend. Stop calling her that. He blinked. You dated her for 4 years. You text her constantly. You invited her into my family's celebration after I clearly told you I was uncomfortable. You made me look like an idiot. I didn't make you look like anything. I stepped closer. I simply wasn't there to make your decision look acceptable. His face shifted. For the first time, the anger cracked. Are you breaking up with me? I looked at the man I had loved for 2 years. The man I had bent myself around until I barely recognized my own shape. Yes. His expression went blank. I am. For several seconds, Ethan said nothing. He simply stared at me, as though the word yes belonged to a language he had never learned. Then he laughed once. A short, disbelieving sound. You're ending a 2-year relationship over one party. No. My voice was calmer than I felt. I'm ending it because the party showed me what this relationship has become. That doesn't even make sense. It makes perfect sense. I looked around the apartment. At the furniture we had chosen together. At the dog bed near the window. At the photographs that once felt like proof of happiness. This isn't about one invitation, Ethan. It's about every time I told you something hurt me, and you explained why I shouldn't feel hurt. His jaw tightened. You're twisting everything. No. I'm finally seeing it clearly. He ran both hands through his hair and began pacing. So, that's it. You disappear for a weekend, embarrass me in front of your whole family, and then come home and decide I'm the villain. I didn't decide that. I paused. You did. He stopped moving. What is that supposed to mean? It means I gave you the chance to choose differently. I told you I was uncomfortable. I explained why. You could have reconsidered. You could have asked Vanessa not to come. You could have cared more about how I felt than about proving you could do whatever you wanted. His expression hardened again. You were being insecure. There it was. That word, his shield, his weapon, his excuse. I nodded slowly. Then why did you leave the party with her? His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Why didn't Vanessa take her own car? She rode with me. Why? Because it made sense. And after the party, we talked. About what? That's none of your business. The answer came too quickly, too defensively. And in that moment, something inside me settled. Not shattered. Settled. I no longer needed a confession. I no longer needed access to his phone. I no longer needed Vanessa to admit anything. The secrecy was enough. The dismissal was enough. The way he continued protecting that connection while standing in the ruins of ours was enough. If you want to be with her, I said, then be with her. His face changed. That's not what this is. Then tell me what it is. He looked away. I waited. He had no answer. You don't trust me, he finally said. I trusted you for 2 years. I swallowed hard. You treated that trust like it was permission to ignore my boundaries. His anger faded, replaced by something more desperate. Claire, I love you. The words hurt more than I expected. Not because I believed them, because part of me still wanted to. If you love me, I asked quietly, why did protecting Vanessa's place in your life matter more than protecting mine? He sat down heavily on the couch. I don't know. It was the first honest thing he had said all morning. Tears filled his eyes. I didn't think you'd actually leave. There it was. The truth beneath everything. He believed I would stay. He believed I would get angry, cry, apologize, and eventually accommodate him again. He never thought there would be consequences because I had taught him there usually weren't. I know, I said. He wiped his face. So, what happens now? The lease is in my name. He looked up sharply. You're kicking me out. I'm giving you 2 weeks to find somewhere else. 2 weeks. You can stay with friends or family if you need more time. This is my home too. I've paid most of the rent since we moved in. That was our agreement. It was another agreement that benefited you. He stood again. You can't just erase me. I'm not erasing you. I looked him directly in the eyes. I'm removing myself from a relationship that keeps erasing me. He slept on the couch that night. I locked the bedroom door. Not because I thought he would hurt me. Because I needed one boundary he could not walk through. For the next 12 days, we lived like strangers trapped inside the remains of a shared life. We discussed furniture, bills, the security deposit, who would keep which kitchen appliances. The dog stayed with me because, despite my allergies, I had become the one who fed him, walked him, scheduled his appointments, and comforted him during storms. Ethan tried several times to start what he called closure conversations. I just want you to understand my side. I understand it. No, you don't. I understand that you expected me to keep tolerating something because I always had before. That usually ended the conversation. On the 12th day, his brother arrived with a rented van. Ethan carried out boxes without looking at me. Near the door, he paused with his final suitcase. I hope you don't regret this. I felt sadness, but beneath it, something stronger. Relief. I already regret how long it took. He left without saying goodbye. The apartment felt enormous after the door closed. Too quiet. Too empty. For the first few nights, I cried more than I expected. Leaving someone does not mean you stop loving them immediately. Sometimes, it only means you finally understand that love cannot repair what respect keeps breaking. 2 weeks later, Olivia sent me a screenshot. It was an Instagram photo of Ethan and Vanessa sitting close together at a restaurant. His hand rested on the back of her chair. Her head leaned toward his shoulder. The caption read, "Sometimes life brings you back to where you were always meant to be." Olivia added one message beneath it. That was fast. I stared at the photo for less than a minute. Then, I replied. It wasn't fast. It was already happening. I expected the confirmation to destroy me. Instead, it gave shape to something I had sensed for months. Maybe they had not physically crossed a line before our breakup. Maybe they had. It no longer mattered. He had already given her emotional space that should have belonged to our relationship. A week later, Dad took me to dinner. We barely discussed Ethan. Instead, he talked about retirement. He wanted to travel, start restoring an old motorcycle, volunteer with veterans, take Mom to Italy, although he admitted he had no idea how to plan the trip. At the end of dinner, he reached for the check before I could. Then he said quietly, "I'm proud of you. For skipping your party, for walking away." He looked at me. Staying is easy when you're afraid of starting over. Leaving takes courage. Coming from him, those words meant everything. About a month after the breakup, I ran into Vanessa at a coffee shop. We saw each other at the same time. For a moment, both of us considered leaving. She approached me first. "Claire, Vanessa." She looked uncomfortable. I wanted to apologize. For the party? For all of it. She glanced down at the cup in her hands. "Ethan told me you were fine with us being friends. He said you knew I was coming and didn't care." I told him the opposite. Her face tightened. "I didn't know. Would it have changed anything?" She hesitated. "I'd like to think so." I nodded. "Then you should ask yourself why he needed to lie." She looked toward the door. "For what it's worth, I never meant to destroy your relationship." "You didn't." I picked up my drink. He did. 3 months have passed since my father's retirement party. The apartment is mine now. I moved the furniture, repainted the bedroom, took down the photographs, bought curtains Ethan would have hated. The space feels warmer, lighter, more honest. I've been focusing on work, going to the gym, and spending more time with my family. Dad and I have lunch every week. Olivia keeps trying to arrange blind dates, though nothing serious has come from them. I'm not in a hurry. Ethan occasionally texts about belongings he claims he forgot, or asks how the dog is doing. I answer only when necessary. Through mutual friends, I heard that he and Vanessa moved in together. Apparently, their relationship is already complicated. They expected to resume what they had 4 years earlier, but neither of them is the same person anymore. Nostalgia can make the past look perfect. It cannot make two people compatible. Mom recently asked whether I regretted missing Dad's retirement party. I admitted that part of me always would, but we celebrated the following weekend at his favorite restaurant. Just family. No performances. No tension. No lies. It was better than the original party could ever have been. Mom also told me what happened when Ethan tried to explain my absence. He said I had a work emergency. She looked at him, glanced at Vanessa, and replied with one word, "Interesting." Then she walked away. Olivia said Ethan's face went completely pale. My mother's "interesting" has always been devastating. The story has become family legend now. My uncle brings it up at gatherings. "Remember when Claire went to the beach instead?" Everyone laughs, even Dad. But he rarely jokes about it. One afternoon during lunch, he looked across the table and said, That weekend was you drawing a line. I smiled. I think so. I'm glad you finally drew one. I looked at my father, the man whose retirement party I had missed yet, who never once made me feel guilty for choosing myself. So on I did. I used to think leaving meant I had failed. Now, I understand that sometimes leaving is the first honest decision you make after years of pretending. I did not disappear because I was weak. I did not go to the ocean because I was afraid. I went because silence was the only thing loud enough to make me hear myself again. And once I did, I could no longer return to the woman who accepted less just to keep someone beside her.